Imagine, if you will, a place of infinite darkness, bursting with life, yet impossibly empty. A vast landscape we entered a millennia ago, but know very little about. Saying it now, space is cool, but the ocean is infinitely cooler. You see, a lot of space relies on the mystery of if there's life beyond our horizon. What could be out there in the skies above? But the ocean, we already know something's in there. We just don't know what it is. Personally, I find the horror and mystery of the ocean equally fascinating, and I can't help but compare it to space. They both are symbols of the unknown, but we forget the ocean far more often because it's not nearly as big a spectacle. Space takes a terrible amount of force to defy the physics engine of life and break out of the boundaries. Then you're floating around the stars in an entirely new environment that's somehow both dead and alive. You'll freeze to death and get a sunburn. While the ocean is simply considered another part of this big boring planet we live on. The big blue part that's only there to go fishing and set up an oil plant. But that's not even close to the grand power of the ocean. I feel like the biggest issue is that exploring the ocean is incredibly difficult. The ocean environments change so quickly, making it almost impossible to get people to the deepest parts. At least till now it did. I've gathered together some of the finest engineers over the year I haven't uploaded. Anyway, I've employed some of the finest to build the ultimate submarine to explore the most unknown parts of the ocean. We call it the Optimum Gold. We even brought Jacques Cousteau back from the grave to help with the project. Today, we'll be hopping in the water and seeing what we find. I'll be your tour guide / captain. Please leave all questions for the end of the trip. And no, I won't say when I'll upload next, because it's basically a gamble at this point. And we've entered the first layer of the ocean, the epipelagic zone, or sunlight zone, if you don't know how to pronounce epipelagic. This is the first 200 meters of water and the only layer that receives enough sunlight for plants to easily photosynthesize. Around 2,000 new species are found in the ocean each year, and the majority are at this layer. It also has the largest range of biomes from the shallow to deep waters. It should also be kept in mind that this is the most dangerous part of the ocean. Technically. There are plenty of ankle biters here, and swimming takes a lot of energy on its own. Remember to be cautious and wear a life jacket when you're out in the waters, even if it is the least attractive safety equipment. There are plenty of creatures that would want to attack us, but thankfully the sub can withstand the majority of outside attacks. The only real threat would be whales, but luckily those only attack tired old sea captains, living puppets, and disloyal prophets. The deepest dive ever without oxygen was performed by Herbert Nitsch, who swam 217 meters deep. That's only a little lower than this layer. We were never supposed to get this deep. We'll need proper equipment to make it any deeper. Alrighty, we seem to be entering the mesopelagic zone, or if you were an avid TV viewer in the 60s, the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone should go on for another 800 or so meters. There isn't enough light for plants to engage in photosynthesis down here, so the number of predators will be increasing as we get deeper. Mostly decomposers actually, but that's not as fun on the box. You should also take into note that we are only the second layer into the ocean, and the water pressure is already strong enough to crush most creatures. At its shallowest, the Twilight Zone exerts 285 pounds per square inch on objects down here, and it's only going to get heavier. For reference, if you leave the submarine at this point, your lungs will stop working. This water density also affects the temperature as we shift through the thermocline. Colder waters are lower down, as should be expected. We should just be a little lower than 5 degrees Celsius at this point. Now, this water can and will warm up, and when it does, it becomes a current, moving from low to high. This isn't really that dangerous, but these currents are crucial for surface environments. Hell, they're the only reason Europe isn't frozen year-round. More neat than horrifying, but it should be said. What is horrifying is decompression sickness. What, you're not liking it down here and want to go back to the surface? Well, too bad, you're going to have to wait a bit because your body is adapted to the new ocean environment. And if you leave too fast, nitrogen's going to start entering the parts of your body that it shouldn't be, making bubbles. This can be fatal. Only from resurfacing too fast though, so take your time. Besides, we're still going deeper, so you'll be fine. We passed the 1,000-meter level or so we should be entering the bathypelagic zone, or the midnight zone for the poetically inclined. This is the area that truly separates the high-level creatures from the low-level creatures. There's almost no light left from the surface, and you'll start to see some funky-looking oddities. Eyes become pretty pointless, so of course that means they get weird. For example, here's the barrelfish. Its eyes aren't these two dots here. To be frank, I don't know what those are. The actual eyes are those big green things in the middle of its transparent skull. Some creatures have normal eyes, but then decided a pointy long nose was the most optimal choice. And let it be known that the anglerfish isn't that big, only growing to a maximum size of 3 feet. That's like half my height. There are a lot of creatures in the midnight zone, but it feels so empty. They're there though. They're just waiting for the right time to reveal Oh yeah, this here is the bigfin squid, one of my favorite oddities in the water. They seem just to float idly, waiting for something to happen as their noodle tentacles stretch lower than the light will show. While they wait for whatever it is they're waiting for, they just stare dead into your soul. A lot of animals in the deep just kinda stare. Of course this gangly fellow, but then there's also the aforementioned anglerfish that relies on the stillness to hunt. And the oarfish is so strange. I've never seen one in person, but these long, shocked-looking, bony fish just simply float like an aquatic wooden plank. We barely know anything about them, but they've inspired quite a few legends in the past. Great sea serpents are said to be originated from the oarfish. Now, they're seen as a bad omen when found ashore, as usually an earthquake will follow. The theory is that they sense an earthquake and flee to the shallow waters to evade it. The tide then brings them to land unintentionally. They're strange creatures. It's around that time that I should probably mention this deep-sea phenomenon that is some scientists startled called abyssal gigantism. The idea is that the lower you go into the water, the bigger the creatures get. You know, it's not too bad, it's just how you get the insects the size of a small puppy or crabs with 12 feet long legs. Or the Greenland shark, longest living vertebrae. Oh hey, there's the trio from earlier. They'll probably be fine. When it comes to the actual abyss of the ocean, there are no plants to be found, so all the oxygen down here is from ice that just melted years ago. When it comes to food and sustenance, most creatures in the abyss live off of a substance called marine snow. It sounds pretty fun until you realize it's less like that funny cold stuff that falls in Canadian summers and more like the Kingdom's Edge from Hollow Knight. Since we're very close to the bottom, you can find the large corpses from higher levels on the ocean floor being chewed on by decomposers. When you die here, you are not wasted. These guys go to town picking on the corpses of whales clean until there's nothing but a really cool wall trophy left. If you ever want to dare a friend to do something crazy, tell them to stick their hand in a whale skeleton and feel all the worms wriggle around. You know, after you manage to get 5,000 meters underwater. But just because we're seeing the ocean floor doesn't mean we've reached the bottom, because we still got trenches to explore. We have gotten to 6,000 meters, which is pretty deep, but the last layer, the trenches, goes on for another 5,000. Sadly though, it's a pretty uneventful 5,000 meters. Most of the trenches is just bragging rights that we're able to reach that deep, but other than that, it's pretty lame. The majority of the creatures are on the higher levels, so we'll just be tapping the bottom and then heading back up. That's not supposed to happen, I think. Huh. We should be fine. Anyway.